Alright, so the Dana 35 in the rear just got re-geared to 4.56 gears. So it's time to do the front so that they match. So I already did a Dana 30 teardown and rebuild vid for the most part. So I'm just going to show you the specific things that have to do with the actual re-gear itself. So I'm going to go into a lot more detail about how to set up your gears and break them in. But as for taking the axle apart, I would recommend just watching the other video. If you're going to reuse your old bearings for your pinion, then you would want to take the carrier out and measure the preload that your pinion has on it. I'm just going to take mine off because I have new bearings anyway, and I want to set it up right. I don't even think I shimmed it right last time. So I'm just going to zip that 1 1/8 inch nut off. You're going to want a little heavy duty impact gun, zip that bowl off. Then you can take the pinion yoke off, and we're going to take the cover off and get to the carrier. Now, bearing caps. When you take the bearing caps off, make sure you mark them. I marked them since I did the job before. So if you notice, this has 2 dots at the top, so this is the right. And this one over here is 1 dot at the top, which is top left. So when you zip those carrier bolts out, your carrier will fall out if your bearings are bad. If it doesn't fall out, you'll have to get a pry bar and wedge it out, which means that it's got the proper preload on it at least. For the pinion, I'll have to knock the yoke off the back. I took the nut off, and then after that you can move the pinion forward and pull the pinion out. So I'm going to get a second catch pan to put all my gear stuff in. Okay, with the carrier bearings, or the carrier caps removed, you can remove your carrier. Now, every time I've done this before, the carrier would fall right out because the bearings were shot. Well, these bearings are pretty much brand new, so they were tight. Very annoyingly so. So, if you're ever having issues trying to figure out how to get this out of here and it's actually tight, take yourself a crowbar like this. It's got a really good bend. And what I found is you take the carrier and rotate it how it is. Make sure that it doesn't, the teeth of this don't contact the spider gears. And you're going to put it in there like this. So you're going to rest it right on the back like this so that it pulls it forward. And you got plenty of leverage to pull it forward. And it's about to fall. So that's how you get it if you're having issues. If you don't have something with a bend like that, good luck. I tried a couple other things that just weren't fitting, and that did pretty well. Get yourself a crowbar, and then after that you can pull this guy out. If you're going to reuse your bearings, make sure that you remember which cap goes to which bearing. Like this race needs to stay on this side, and that race needs to stay on that side. So don't swap them. Alright, for yoke removal, if your pinion yoke's being a bitch, take yourself one of these kind of pry bars, flat end, and what you're going to do is you're going to wedge it up in there like this. Even if you got to rotate it at an angle, and just pop it like that. And that'll give you the leverage to pop it out. And then after that, your yoke will just come right off. So now just take a soft face mallet and beat this guy forward so that you can get your outer bearing to slide off the pinion. That may or may not be difficult. If you can, try and have a hand on the other side to catch your pinion head so it doesn't go flying out the other end if you finally get that last beat going. Okay. Alright, bring it all inside and get yourself a nice little work area set up. So, first thing is, if you're going to keep your old carrier, you're going to have to remove your ring gear. So the way that I did that, you got 10 of these bolts right here. These are 11/16. And you just take an impact gun and zip in a cross pattern. So you're going to go this one, this one, this one, this one, and that just helps loosen it. It lets the pressure off a little easier instead of going in a circle. I don't know if that helps keeping it from warping or anything like that, but take all of them out except leave like one on this side and one on this side that's pretty loose. That's got like a couple threads left in it. And then what you're going to do is stand the whole assembly upright like this. Take a dead blow hammer and just hit on the head of the bolt back and forth, hit on this one, then hit on this one, and eventually your ring gear will drop off. And then after that, there you go. Got yourself a removed ring gear. Alright, now, in here you're going to have to take the inner race out. So, you know, grab yourself a punch and a hammer, and just get on the back of that, start at the bottom, hit the top, bottom, top, and then you'll pop it out. There's the race, and your shim pack should come flying out with it. Take your shim pack and measure it so that you know what was previously in there to figure out a good starting point for your new stuff. Now, you're going to want to grind the outside of this down so that it'll slide in and out easily. So you have a setup race, and you'll need to make some setup carrier bearings and all kinds of fun stuff. So, yeah. Alright, so there's the carrier bearings off. This one may have got slightly bent, but these are only setup bearings, so I don't really give a fuck about them that much. This one turned out pretty good. If you notice, this one doesn't have any ridges anywhere to actually pull the bearings off, so I did do it very carefully with one of these clamshells. I just tightened the crap out of it and hoped that it didn't start resting on the cage and actually got underneath the bearing. And I got this set up here with bricks that are just thick enough to allow the carrier ring to fit in there, because right now that hole was not the right size. So, you know, it's a little, you know, and stuff. I also used one of these guys just to properly sit on this. So now that those are off, I measured my my carrier shims. Make sure you remember what side they came off of, because that was your backlash setting from before. So here's my old setup right here. They're all within the 36s besides the ring gear, which is 55. I don't really care about preload or backlash or pattern or any of that, because I have new gears and I'm going to set them up. So now that we have those numbers, we can check out the other stuff and make up setup bearings. To grind the inside of these two out so that they'll slide on and off the carrier. Got some of this good stuff right here. New bearings and seals and nuts and shims and all that shit. Here's our new gears right there, 4.56 ratio. So there's that good stuff. So yeah, now the fun part of making setup bearings and doing stuff. Alright, so yeah, grinding bearings, that's always fun. Take your Dremel with a bit on there and go to town. And eventually it'll fit. Eventually. It's getting there. Takes fucking forever. After you have appeased the metal gods and worshipped their bearing for about an hour, boop! You got a setup bearing! Oh, fuck! God damn it. It came off the first time. Ah! Looks good to me. Well, when it does come off, it does come off. Son of a bitch. Ugh. Fucking bearings. Okay, so we got our two carrier setup bearings. I have my setup race for the inner pinion bearing, because mine was shimmed between the housing and the race, not between this guy. So, if you messed up your old oil slinger, which you probably did, you should order a new one. But if you decide to not incorporate it, measure the thickness of it and add that to your pinion depth shim stack, because this right here does affect your pinion depth a little bit. So for instance, since my inner pinion shim was 0.36, let's say that that's like a 0.10 inch, you would want to start out with like a 0.46, you know, 46 thousandths. So you're going to put this guy on first, make sure that your surfaces are clean, and then you're going to take your new bearing out of the set over there. This is going to be the one that's not the biggest and not the smallest inner diameter. This is like the in-between guy. Make sure that when you put it on, you can still take the race off. It's going to go on like this. Okay? Race comes this way. And then you just press it on there. Make sure that you're not pressing on the cage, okay? Don't press on the cage. You want to press on this inner diameter right here. So find something that sits on that inner diameter. and press it on there. And then after that, we're gonna put this race aside. So remember which one's the good race, and then you can take your setup race and put that on there. I already measured. They have the same thickness as each other. They ride about the same. So the final reading shouldn't be too far off. So press that guy on there, and then we can start getting our shims ready and putting stuff together for test runs. Okay, make sure it's all set up correctly. Got myself a pipe that fits on the inside, got a cap on there, and you know, this stuff. And you work it. You get the idea. Okay, now for the initial setup, usually they come with patterns on them, markings, some kind of numbers that tell you what's going on. But for mine, it's a bit of a conversion, which sucks. So here's the old one right here. Now if you notice at the top, that's a +1. So that means that they had to add +1/1000th of an inch shim. I'm pretty sure they increased the pinion depth. Maybe they subtracted one, I forget, but it's a +1 there. And it's got some other numbers on here. It's got I think a 17 or an 11 there and some marking. And that's just something to do with how they're identified. But if you look at the new one, instead of a +1, we have a 57 here, which tells you, I guess, the gear set to make sure that they're matched, a matched pair. And you have a number here, 2.261. Now that's your actual pinion depth right there. So they give you the actual number, and these ones give you a number plus or minus what the original was. So you would need to know what the original factory setting was to figure out the conversion between this number and that number. If I were to take an estimated guess, I'd want to say maybe 2.260 was the factory setting, but who knows, maybe it's not always perfect. I don't know. I'm going to start somewhere close to the original stack and see how that matches and continue from there, I guess. So, whatever. Alright, now on to the ring gear fun. Cleaned up all this stuff with brake clean and all that good stuff to try and get most of the crap out of there. But your gear, your ring gear, is going to be a press fit when it finally goes on there. It's not going to just slide on there. So you can do two things. You could freeze this and heat that up and maybe have them slide together. Or you can do it the way that I'm going to do it and put all the bolts in and slowly suck it in. I'm going to go like, you know, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. Kind of like tightening a wheel. You go in a star pattern to just slowly help suck it in. It works for the most part. I did that on the back and it seemed to do a pretty good job. And it's only got to move about 1 millimeter. So it's not like it's really pulling it that much. You're going to want new bolts. So I got some new bolts. I bought 20 of them because I did the front and the back. So got our new bolts. You're going to put some Loctite on there. Red if you have it. Blue's fine too. And, you know, put them all in there. Now I'm going to use my impact gun to help suck them in there. The final torque spec is, I think, it's up there. I want to say 60, 75 foot-pounds. And it's not easy to torque them with a torque wrench. On the locker that I had, I used like a pry bar or something, or a real big screwdriver to hold this in place while I torqued it on the ground. It wasn't easy, but I got it done. So, yeah. Alright, I tried some different screwdrivers and pry bars, and they either weren't fitting or they were touching the spider gears in ways I didn't like. I was going to try and take the center pin out, but I said, you know what, this thing's got a flat spot, so if you don't have a vise, well, you can do some shit like this. I took the flat parts, and they finally wedged up to both the walls, and then it gives you a perfect holding thing that just holds it in place, and you can torque away. That was actually really fucking easy. So, they've all been torqued to 65 foot-pounds. Hooray! On to shit. Okay, at this point, you can install your new rear race. So, that is in there, and you'll notice it's in there pretty deep. So, if you're having issues trying to figure out how to put it in there, take your old race, flip it upside down like this, or backwards, so you got that. And I also had a pipe cap that fit on there nicely, and I used that to head it in. And what's interesting is this slides out real easy. It doesn't actually contact where that contacts. So there you go, get yourself a sledge and have some fun. So now we can start putting it together. I'm going to put it together with basically the same shim stack it had before. Make sure it all fits. Check the backlash, and I'll do a gear paint pattern check just to see what it's looking like, and then we can adjust from there. So I'm going to assemble everything. Don't worry about the seal out here. That's not going to go on until last. Also, I'm going to reuse the old pinion nut because I don't want to use the new one just yet either. Alright, well, I'm not sure where I left off, but my camera died, so I couldn't really explain what was going on, but I set everything up, put it together, got the backlash, I tried to set the backlash. I got a decent preload going on the pinion and all that, and I put it all together, and I start messing around, and I can't get the backlash anywhere even close to what I need. So here's my readings right here. You can see up here, this is the original setup. I always record what it was originally set up to, and then I'll mirror that. So I did that, and if you notice here, I'm just working on preload to get a decent preload. I got it up to like 10 inch-pounds. I'm like, yeah, it's decent enough. But if you notice, the backlash is 0.084, which is insane. You're looking to go anywhere from like 6 to 9. So if you notice, I start messing around with the backlash. I'll go, okay, I'll take a really big chunk off here and swap it over. That helped a little bit, kind of. It dropped down 10. And then, alright, I'll try some other things, and it dropped down a little bit, down to 61. Or 69, I'm sorry. And I'm like, alright, fine, I'll just put everything on the ring gear side. And the lowest I could get it was 56. And I'm like, something's not right here. And then it dawned on me. I forgot. The carrier brake of a Dana 30 is 3.73. So there's two different carriers. There's a thicker one and a thinner one. When you change your gear ratio, really what you're doing is making your pinion head smaller. So your ring gear has to get closer and closer and closer. Well, there's only so much you can do with their little shim adjustments, and after that, there comes a point when they decide, okay, we're just going to make a different thick carrier. So the carrier brake was 3.73, and my original ratio was 3.55. So that means that I have the smaller carrier, not the thicker one. So I need to get a new carrier. And if I'm going to get a new carrier, I might as well just lock the damn thing. So, a little unplanned, I guess I'm going to lock it. So there goes another 700 something down the drain. I'm getting myself another Eden E-locker. I already locked the rear with that and tested it, and it seems pretty good. Haven't driven it yet, but it does function. So fuck it. We'll lock the front and the rear. So, good thing I made those setup bearings. Got to order four bearings and 2 races so I can make setup bearings, because these are shimmed inboard. I guess you could shim outboard, but there wasn't enough flat surface, and fuck it, it's not that expensive. Getting them off Rock Auto with discounts is pretty cheap, so, you know, extra $12 just to make setup bearings, that's not terrible. So, we're going to wait for that locker to come, take the ring gear off, and fucking set it all up again. Hooray. Alright, let's attempt this again with our locker and everything. So, let's see what kind of readings we get now. It's nice when things just fucking work out. Alright, so I took all the old measurements and just transfer them over, because I'm like, alright, fuck it, let's just see what we get. So, with the pinion shim depth was 60, and then the preload shims were 64, so I get about, 10 inch-pounds of rotating torque. That's, it's okay, it could be higher, so I'm going to increase that a little bit. But I found out that 34 thousandths on each side allows the locker to slide in. So the backlash is 0.3, and I didn't like that, so I figured, alright, fuck it, I'll take the 4 from the one side, put it on the other, so now we got 30 and 38. That brings it up to 0.5, which is still a little low, so I'm going to see if I can move it over just a hair. You want to be in the like 6 to 10 range of backlash. But I figured, alright, backlash is pretty good, let's check the pattern. So, you can check, I believe this is the coast side, right here. Hate if I was wrong. So it's looking pretty good. I don't know how well you can see it. There you go. It's damn near centered, and the top to bottom isn't too bad. This one looks great. The coast is beautiful. And if I rotate it down, that's the drive side. It's hard to really get you in there good, but I like that pattern too. That one looks awesome. I feel like, I don't know, might not even have to drop down at all. That's damn near perfect. This is like my first attempt, and the pattern is beautiful. So I might miss the backlash a little bit, but for the most part, the lockers, the gears are set up. I'm very happy with this. After all the fucking crap I had to go through to get the 35 done, this 30 is a piece of cake. I think it's just about time to put our good bearings on. Alright, once you're happy with your pattern, it's centered nicely, you got decent backlash, and everything looks to be okay, it's time to put your new bearings on. I already installed the new outer race for the pinion, so I got to install the new pinion shim, or the new pinion race, and put the new outer bearing on. So if we come over to the kit, we have our outer bearing and our inner race. Now, of course, these carrier bearings were meant for the stock 30 carrier, so those will not be used. We can also install our seal and use our new nut. So, along with that, this guy gets his new bearings. Now, I only ordered one set of races, so I'm going to clean these off so that they can be used in the final production. Pop these races off. Don't forget what shims were on what side. Put your new bearings on. Alright, here's everyone's favorite part. Pressing the bearings on. Make sure that they're facing the right direction with the cone, you know, pointing like this. Make sure your shims are on there and cleaned off and there's no grit or anything, and oil up both surfaces. Make sure that whatever you're using to press the bearing on is not pressing against the cage, only the inner part, because the cage is very flexible and flimsy, and if you bend that at all, your bearing's toast. So, there. Press bearings on. Okay, so now we get to install all the new stuff for all this. So now you can get rid of your setup race and get your new race ready, and also get your new rear bearing. So the way that I like to do this is to take the shims, stick them up in there, so that they fit nice and tight like that. Then you're going to take your new race. I'm going to oil this up with my finger, just put some oil around it, and pop the race in there. And then it just kind of sits in there. So what you can do is take a cap like this and put the cap on there and then beat it in like that. For the back, I know sometimes it works to put the old race on top of the new race like so, and then put the cap on and beat it if you're having depth issues. But you know, regular hammer or even a sledge will work just fine. But I'm gonna oil it up, make sure that the shims don't get too cockeyed and that it just fully seats. Alright, there you go, new race is all up in there. I just used this cup and kept whacking it with the hammer. And I just held it like so and kept knocking it in. And then once it got to the point where I thought it might have been bottoming out, I set the old race up like this and held them both together and banged them both in. And I'm pretty sure that that's flush. I don't feel a ridge anywhere around it, so that's in there. And since we already installed the rear race, we can put this whole guy in. So for now, I'm just going to use the old nut, and I'm not going to put the seal in. I want to make sure that the preload's good with all new bearings and everything. And if the preload's good, then we'll take the yoke off, put the seal off. If not, we need to adjust that. So, put that in there. Okay, now the tedious frickin' process of getting your pinion preload correct. I like the Dana 35 style a lot better. Crush sleeves are awesome. You crush them once and you're done. This one you gotta fucking take it apart like 10 times until you get the preload right. And a thousandth of a shim does make a difference. So I started out with 64 thousandths of a shim, and that was way too tight. I had like 40 inch-pounds of rotating resistance. So then I stepped it up and down and up and down and down and up, and I finally settled on 72. So I added a 6 and a 4 to get my way up to 20 inch-pounds of torque. So that's a solid 20 right there. On new bearings, you're looking on anywhere from 20 to 25. So 20 is damn near good. If I were to add a 1/1000th of a shim, I could get 25. If I had a 2/1000th, I'd have 30. It really fucking goes real fast. So now that I've got the proper preload and the pinion depth from what I know, I'm going to put the carrier in one last time just to check the pattern. If the pattern's good, I'm going to take this off and put the new seal on. So I don't want to put the seal on and then find out, oh wow, my pinion depth's way off for some reason now. Let's go get the carrier. Okay, so with the carrier back in the housing, I did one more paint test and one more backlash test. And the paint still looks pretty good. This gear set is laying together very well. I didn't get a very good pattern. Like it didn't rub out well. It's kind of hard to turn the thing. But it is very centered and does look very nice. The one thing that I did notice was that the back and forth backlash that the dial indicator was showing was a little low. It dropped down to 4 thousandths, I guess. And that's a little too low. And since these are the new bearings that are on here, I kind of, did some stuff. In order to shim it without taking the bearings off, I don't really have a good bearing puller. I don't want to pull these on and off a lot. So like I did with the Dana 35, they're shimmed outboard to begin with. So I just took one of these bigger shims right here. I took a 4/1000th, put it on the non-ring gear side to push it back a little, and it went from 4 to 6, and 6 is acceptable. So with the one outboard shim and all the other stuff inboard, we have good backlash, we have good pinion preload. The carrier does fall out a little bit. It could have been tighter, but again, since I don't have a bearing puller, I'm gonna have to live with it. But it's got a beautiful pattern. So I'm going to leave this in here. I'm going to leave the carrier in here. And I'm going to take the old nut off and the old yoke off. Install the new seal. Install the new nut. I'm also going to put a little bit of RTV on the splines so any fluid doesn't leak past the nut. So let's do that. Okay, so now with your yoke, I like to take some sandpaper and run it along this whole sealing surface because after a while the old seal starts to wear grooves, and you want to try to smooth out those grooves a little so that your new seal doesn't leak. If you notice, I also have some RTV in there. Now what that's going to do is when you slide this yoke onto the splines will push all the RTV to the top here. And then it'll sit behind the nut. So what you're doing is basically sealing the inside. Usually they'll use like a rubber star washer, but this didn't come with it. I've heard of a few people saying that their yokes leak, not from the outside seal, but from the inside where the oil makes its way past the through the splines. So I just like to do the RTV thing because it's cheap and simple insurance. So I'm going to oil this surface, oil that seal, pop that on there. Now with this nut, the nut that they gave me has a pretty big lip on the bottom, unlike the old one, so I'm not going to use the thrust washer, because this one looks like it already has the washer pre-installed, basically. So, oil it up and stick it in. Alright, back in the daylight. So the pinion nut from the Haynes manual that I have, the front pinion yoke nut, is torqued to 210 foot-pounds. So you'll be having fun with that. I took myself a big pipe and a pipe wrench. I put the pipe wrench around the yoke and had an extension pipe, like a cheater bar, come off that, and I held that against the ground that way. And then I used the breaker bar and a really long pipe on the other side to pull up and torque that down. So I torqued that until that was real tight. I don't have the pipes with me, but this was the bar I used. So anyway, since that's torqued down and the RTV in the back is dry and all that stuff's good and the seal looks like it fits pretty nice, I think. I hope. Next thing is to torque your carrier. The carrier, I think, gets 60 to 65 foot-pounds. So just torque all your carrier bolts down, and you should be good to fill up with fluid and rock and roll. So there you go. Got my Felpro gasket on here, because fuck RTV. And the bolts. So, cover it up. Make it look pretty. If you ever have issues trying to fill up your diff with fluid, this is how I do it. Just take your bottle, cut off the tip, and use a little rubber hose. It works real great. This is only like a couple inches, probably 4 or 5 inches. That's all you need. And just keep squirting in until it starts running out. So usually it takes me about a bottle and a half, or a quart and a half, I should say, of gear lube to fill this up.